working that in 2011 and starting to be into 2012, and that hurt, and then like everything else happens, that storm starts to run out.
Yeah.
You know, and so my dad calls me, and remember, he's an entrepreneur. You can kick him down.
But is he feeling all right at this point?
Yeah, he's back healthy. Oh yeah, he's back healthy. He's got his heart monitor and all that.
Good.
And he's back going. And so he says, Stephen, what are you doing out there in Oklahoma? And I said, well, I've been out here running crews and everything. And he's like, well, listen, I got an exciting new business. You know, my dad hadn't worked with him in a couple years now.
You're feeling good about that, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's get the band back together.
Right.
I get it.
Let's get it back together. So he says, he's up in Georgia now.
All right.
He's in Atlanta.
You're not far from him then.
And he's like, hey, come down to Georgia. He's like, I'll show you the ropes of the new business. He's like, I'll set you up with a crew. He's like, we're taking care of foreclosures. We're changing the locks. We're doing evictions. We're helping, change foreclosures and mowing grass. It's so easy. He's like, you don't even have to sell. And you don't even have to collect.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, the banks pay you. And you don't have to sell and you don't have to collect.
No. Okay.
I'm like, all right. So I call my wife. I'm like, hey, I'm going to Georgia. This is what I want to do. My dad's, are you sure you want to go work for him again? Are you sure that this is what you want to do? Well, at this time, I didn't really have a choice. You know, that storm had worked itself, right? So then it was time to make another move. So I got 3 kids at home, and I ended up moving to Georgia. And my dad and I ran a very successful, what you call REO business, real estate owned, foreclosures. And so I had, worked that pretty hard for my dad.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming that everything then just went great for the rest of the time, right?
Not quite. Not quite. Yeah.
So, I mean, if everything's going... So you make that move. It's a big risk for you and your family. Obviously, you took the huge risk with, in my opinion, that sticking point was selling the wife's wedding ring, and then you move on. But this is a sticking point, too, because now you bet on your family again. You bet on your father again, and you're moving there.
Yeah.
And things are going well. So I'm assuming at this time, you've got to be thinking there, 2011, 2012, somewhere around in there, that, okay, we got this thing figured out. We found a new business. We're back in the game now.
Right.
Is that how it stays?
Well, it stayed that way for about a year and a half, and my dad wanted to open up a new operation. He wanted to open up and get back to Florida because he had been in Georgia. And so he wanted me to run the Georgia operation, and he wanted to go run an operation in Florida. And so I said, okay. I said, well, I'll run the Georgia operation. That's not a problem. And at this time, my wife's living in Florida, and I said, well, it looks like I'm going to be here for a while. Mm-hmm. So we moved to Georgia. I bring the kids, all 3 of them, and we come up to Georgia, and we're working for my dad. I'm on a salary every week, not having to worry about money. I would come home, bring the check to my wife. She would pay all the bills. She was taking care of all the finances. All I had to do was work my tail off.
My dad. Money's
coming in. Things were for the first time they were stable, right?
Okay.
We had my kids were in school. We had a nice house, 2-story Georgia house, right? Making good money, and I'm starting to get confidence again. I'm starting to feel good about things.
Sure.
And I started to want to be back into the roofing business again.
All right.
I started feeling that itch to start my own operation again. And so I ended up, after working for my dad for about a year and a half, I ended up stepping away and ended up starting another roofing company.
Okay. So that's fast forward there. So we're looking at, but you can't just start your own roofing company. You've got to, at that time, you've got to go in and you've got to get a license if you want to go in and do that. And you'd already been denied for a license. So how does...
Well, this was in Georgia. I was wanting to start a roofing operation in Georgia.
So now...
There's no licensing there.
So you want to jump right into it in Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that exactly what you do there?
And that's what we did. That's what I did. I started working for another roofer at first, and I started selling for them, running crews for them. When I say running crews, I was basically a sub. I would run all the guys, they would pay me, I would pay the guys. I was making money off of that, and I was selling. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up doing pretty well in Georgia, and there was a hailstorm there that had happened, which kind of got my interest, you know. And so I ended up doing very well for a while, and then my luck ran out again.
Okay.
And I ended up working for a guy as a sub, and he was this shyster.
All right.
And he ended up having me run a bill up for almost $25,000 before I knew better. I mean, and that's only 10 roofs.
Right.
You know, that's me going out working for about 2 weeks with my crew.
Right.
So I run out and I run up a big bill with this guy for 25 grand, and I didn't know it at the time, but the guy was like a con man, and he ended up on the news. He had taken people's insurance money and he didn't put the roofs on, and I ended up losing $25,000, which was basically everything that I had.
Yep.
I had to pay all the crews, and I didn't get paid. You know, I didn't want to leave my men, you know, so I paid them out of my own pocket, even though I didn't get paid. And so here we are again. I'm in Georgia, and I'm broke again. And I just, again.
Why not just mail it in, man? Enough with the roofing already. I mean, like, was there ever a time like you just sit there and you're like, man, I've been screwed in roofing enough times, I'm just done with it?
I guess not.
I guess not. I mean, obviously
it
not.
never came into my mind. I loved it.
I mean, I can't say that I would be the same person. I have to
Yeah.
admit. I mean, there's not a lot of people out there who would.
I mean, I've been kicked in the nuts a lot.
I've counted 5 times so far.
You know?
So over
Yeah.
and over and over again.
I'm just getting kicked down. But it's not. It doesn't even end there, Patrick. It doesn't end there.
Well, no, I mean, so how do you actually start the Douglas Restoration name in Georgia? You know, what do you do now that you have no money again? Now what?
Well, at this time, you know, there was a big hurricane or a hailstorm.
Going chasing that hurricane again.
So I'm like, well, let's see, what can we do here?
Well, we're gonna chase it. Probably what we're gonna do.
North Carolina. Oh, that's only about an hour.
Okay.
From Georgia. That's doable. So, what am I going to do?
Thank God I know your story ends up okay, because right now I'm nervous just listening to it again.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So I go up to North Carolina and I start doing the same thing, selling roofs.
Crushing storms.
I'm selling roofs. I'm running crews, and so you know everything. But I was out of money, and so you know. I remember the worst part, and I may edit this out, but I'll tell you, there was a time where I was so broke that I remember having a bank account that didn't have any money in it, but that the bank, whenever I would deposit something, they would just put the credit right into the bank account.
Oh.
So I would deposit a check, and then the next morning the money would be there. I'm talking about $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. And so I was out of money, and I went up to my guy, and I was like, Pedro was his name. And I was like, do you have a checkbook? And he's like, yeah, I do. And I was like, can you write me a check for $3,000? I was like, we need to go to North Carolina. He's like, I don't got $3,000. And I said, I know. So he strokes me a check for $3,000. Douglas Roofing, or whatever my company was. Yeah, Go Green Roofing was it. So I could take it to the bank, put it in the bank. The next morning, my bank account says I had $3,000 in it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.